I'm delighted we have Matthew Berry. I told him I'm at a point in my life where I really don't want to meet any new people, but I was very glad to meet him and get to know him, and reluctantly expanded my list of friends. He may not feel the same way, but at least from my perspective, which takes a lot for me at this point to welcome someone in. Hell, it took me a while to welcome you in 5 years ago, so it's even more difficult to get over the wall now. Not that they're lining up to get over the wall, but that's okay. I still have a wall.
The Grinch, I'm sorry, Mike Florio is here.
Don't talk about my friend like that.
My God. Wait,
don't talk about my friend
that was
like
very
that.
sweet. I'm more concerned about Florio's general disposition at this point. He sounds concerned about It's really hard to get close to Mike Florio, apparently.
It's self-awareness, but clearly Michael Smith knows he's not getting over the wall.
It
so
sounds
now
like
you're throwing him under the bus.
It sounds like it. I'm comfortably on this side of the wall. I guess I better make myself comfortable.
Well, no. Again, the line is not long, Michael. It's not like you have to wait for a very long time to get your answer, yes or no. But self-awareness can be a good thing. Self-awareness can be a bad thing. I am fully aware of where I am in life, and I want no new friends. But I have one in Matthew Berry, and I'll work on one in Michael Smith.
I appreciate that. Well, listen, let's make everybody aware that we're recording this before any announcement of Deshaun Watson's appeal of his the NFL's appeal of Deshaun Watson's 6-game suspension. I beg your pardon. And when we get that word, we know that Mike Florio will be the first, if not among the first, to be aware of how long Deshaun Watson will actually be suspended. What do you know at the moment, and how should fantasy managers, for purposes of this show, approach Deshaun Watson if they're looking at him at quarterback?
Well, guys, as we're having this discussion, we are 13 days removed from the day that the NFL appealed the 6-game suspension. The rules don't set a deadline specifically for resolving the appeal, but the rules say that the appeal must be expedited. 13 days does not feel expedited to me. I thought we were going to have something last week, that first Friday of the preseason. Peter Harvey, who's handling the appeal, I believe is giving both sides ample opportunity to work out a settlement. I was told on Monday that it's about a 50-50 proposition. I always hate 50-50 because anybody can say 50-50, but that's what I was told. It's 50-50 as to whether or not it settles. Watson, according to the AP, as of last week, willing to do 8 games and pay a $5 million fine. I suspect the NFL's floor is 12. Could they split the difference to 10? Peter Harvey, as we speak, giving them ample opportunity to do that. And at some point, the process ends. At some point, he has to rule. And if he has to rule, it's going to be, I think, a full season subject to a federal court challenge that the union is confident about, but I don't know why they would be, because even though they've had initial success in past cases, they tend to always end up losing these.
Yeah, the NFL seems hung up on him not going back to Houston week 12. Matthew, go ahead.
Yeah, look, with the caveat, of course, that it feels really silly to talk about Deshaun Watson from a fantasy football point of view.
Fair enough.
Given the seriousness of the allegations against him, right? I mean, so let's just call it like that. But we are a fantasy football show. He is a significant player in the world of fantasy football, so we do have to get into this a little bit. Yahoo drafters are basically ignoring it. They are obviously expecting a significantly longer suspension than 6 games. He's going as quarterback 22. He's only being drafted in 28% of leagues. So most leagues he's not even being drafted in, and when he is being drafted, he's being drafted as quarterback 22. So I think most people are assuming, to your point, Mike, that it's going to be a much longer suspension. It's going to be a run-first offense, and I suppose that if you are in a deeper league and you wanted to take a flyer late in your draft and hope that he maybe plays at some point this year, understood. But I would...
Maybe a dynasty pick.
Yeah, and certainly in dynasty he has value. But I would be concerned about counting on Deshaun Watson for significant fantasy production for any significant period of time this year, especially, what I'm hearing, and Mike, what you're saying as well. It sounds like that, if Deshaun's current status is, hey, I'll sit out 8 games, and he's missing at least half the season, if not more. And so I think that affects not just obviously his fantasy value, but the value of all the Browns pass catchers. We talked about Amari Cooper earlier in the show. Mike, I'm out on him at his current ADP. Nick Chubb, Kareem Hunt. That's who you want. You want Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt. It's going to be a run-first team, especially if Jacoby Brissett is under center for a significant period of time. And I think David Njoku as a tight end too. But other than that, I think Cleveland is pretty much a more of an interesting NFL story than fantasy story this year.
Yeah, I think you're right. And look, separating the reasons why he won't be an attractive fantasy player from the fact that he does fit that mold. And I think we all have a smart ass or two in our league that likes to grab that guy that no one's thinking about that could make a difference later, whether it's Antonio Brown last year or at some, in past years it's been Antonio Brown, Josh Gordon, that guy that, hey, maybe we're going to get lucky. Maybe we're going to have a guy that shows up late in the season and make a big difference. And there's a chance that could be Deshaun Watson. If it ends up being 12 games, it's right in time for playoffs. You're holding him in your back pocket. I'm sure every league or plenty of leagues will have one person who decides that I'm just going to keep Deshaun Watson on ice because you never know what's going to happen come week 12, 13, 14.
Yeah. Hey, there was some talk about Jimmy Garoppolo potentially, being a solution for Cleveland if they, weren't sold for whatever reason on Jacoby Brissett. But that doesn't seem to be in the plans. What's up with Jimmy Garoppolo? Still do $25 million this year, which the Niners aren't paying.
Well, when it was 6 to 8 games that the Browns thought they would not have Deshaun Watson, then it's Jacoby Brissett, and we'll wait for Deshaun. Once they started to get the impression that maybe it's going to be the full season, that's when Jimmy Garoppolo's name started to come up. So we're still kind of in a holding pattern as to how long the Browns won't have Deshaun Watson. Garoppolo could become relevant there. What the 49ers are doing, guys, they're just waiting for lightning to strike somewhere and take out a starting quarterback for the season. Because then the 49ers get trade value for Jimmy Garoppolo like the Eagles did 6 years ago when the Vikings suddenly lost Teddy Bridgewater and gave up a first-round pick and a fourth-round pick for Sam Bradford. And Garoppolo gets far closer to his $25 million than whatever he's going to get when he's finally cut by the 49ers, if that's what happens, and he becomes a free agent. So both sides are on the same page that, hey, if somebody gets very unlucky at quarterback, they get lucky, 49ers get something, Garoppolo gets paid, and he goes to a new team. And the question is, how long are the 49ers going to perpetuate this ruse? Are they going to push it all the way up to the day before their first game of the regular season at Chicago? Are they going to do it when they cut the rosters on August 30 to 53 or somewhere in between? Or would they be crazy enough to keep him into the regular season and let that salary fully guarantee? If you're a vested veteran, 4 or more years of service, your salary fully guarantees week 1. And he's going to clearly and gladly take the balance of that money if he gets cut at some point after that. I don't think they'll do that, but right now they're just waiting. And I think we all wait. And he becomes the injury replacement if, Zach Wilson's knee injury had ended up being worse than it initially looked it was going to be. That's a place he could have gone. Other teams are going to be potentially in that same mold. We got 2 more weeks of preseason to get through.
Speaking of waiting, we've been waiting on clarity when it comes to Alvin Kamara's discipline from the NFL. But lately, reportedly, it may not happen this year. His attorneys have pushed the hearings and so on and so forth. You're the lawyer. You could explain that better than I can. Is Alvin Kamara in the clear for this season with regard to discipline from the NFL?
Well, the reality is the wheels of justice often do grind very slowly. There was a hearing August 1, and all that happened at the hearing was the case was kicked 2 months down the road. These are felony battery charges that Alvin Kamara faces. And when you read the personal conduct policy, there's not a very difficult case to make for him ending up on paid leave. I'm not sure why the NFL hasn't done it. I've asked them about it from time to time, and I know how they work well enough that when they don't respond to me, they don't want to deal with it. They don't want to shine a light on it. They don't want stories to be written about it. For whatever reason, they've decided not to put him on paid leave. I don't expect him to be put on paid leave before week 1. So the question is, when the case resolves, how does it resolve, and what will the punishment be after the fact? And the way it's going now, to get to the point where the legal case resolves, the league would do its investigation. We learned a lot about what happens now with the league's personal conduct policy because of Deshaun Watson's case. You have Judge Sue L. Robinson who gets involved and makes her decision. Then you got the appeal process. It is reasonable to think that we're going to get through the full season without any action being taken against Alvin Kamara because the immediate roadblock is resolving the criminal case. And if there's going to be a trial at some point, it's probably not going to be until calendar year 2023. So unless the league would decide to put him on paid leave. And if they want to, they can. But they've shown no inclination to do it. If they don't do that, he's free and clear all year long.
And it's interesting because he's currently going as running back 12 on Yahoo. I think people were concerned about he's going to miss 6 games. He's going to have some sort of suspension. But again, because the wheels of justice grind slowly, as you put it, I actually think, again, it feels dumb to talk about him in a fantasy perspective given the seriousness of the charges. But from a fantasy football point of view, I think Alvin Kamara is actually an amazing value this year. We talked about him at the top of the show as well, that if he's going to play all games, or at least be eligible to play all games this year, guy who's normally a top 5 fantasy running back going as running back 12 is a real value. And so I think that's really interesting. Mike, I know you talk to general managers and coaches and scouts around the league every single day. Give me one player. For the people that aren't watching this, give me one player that you're hearing the most buzz about in training camp so far.
Well, this one seems pretty obvious just because he created so much buzz on Saturday night in the preseason opener against the Seahawks. But George Pickens, the Steelers receiver, the second rounder who tore the ACL in spring practice in 2021 and slid farther than maybe he should have. And there's some questions, but the Steelers have shown over the years that they know how to draft and develop great young receivers at every round. Their misses are far fewer and farther between than they are for any other team. They've had so many star players from rounds 2 through round 7, and Pickens just instantly looks the part. And for buzz to be coming out of Steelers training camp, an old school team first atmosphere where it's not conducive to anyone being the centerpiece of attention, especially in a year when they're having their first quarterback competition in a generation. To me, that just shows how much talent this kid has, because the Steelers would love to put a lid on any of that, and they can't. That's how good he is. The question is, who's getting him the football, and how effective will that part of the offense be, and how much will they even throw it with Najee Harris? But George Pickens is a fascinating talent at a time when they've paid Deontay Johnson for a couple of years. Nobody knows what they really think about Chase Claypool. Is he going to be there long term? Pickens is a guy who can make a big splash right away. But again, it's all relative to how much the Steelers are even going to be throwing the football in 2022.
I actually think they're going to be more successful throwing the football this year than they were last year. I honestly think Mitchell Trubisky and or Kenny Pickett would be an upgrade over what Ben Roethlisberger was last year. You know, genuinely. I mean, listen, Big Ben's a Hall of Famer, but not based on what he did last year. And so, as you said, Mike, when the Steelers draft a wide receiver, you pay attention. So I think Pickens is a really interesting player, and a lot of people do, by the way. Now the favorite to win Offensive Rookie of the Year, George Pickens.
Certainly
is
a favorite dynasty pick, if nothing else.
Yep.
Pickett to Pickens certainly has a nice ring to it. We'll see if it rolls that easily on the field as it does off the tongue. Mike Florio, we appreciate the insight, brother. Thank you so much. We'll talk to you throughout the year.
Thank you, my new
Great
friend.
talking to you guys.
Oh,
Take
y'all
care.
gonna talk y'all gonna talk all the time anyway. Y'all probably gonna call each other after this.
Yeah, we're gonna text each other about how good the segment went.
Michael, the wall's there, the door's cracked open. All you got to do is give it a little push. And
Okay.
You're inside too, if you want to be.
I will find my way to your heart one way or the other, Mike Florio. Thank you.
All right,
man.
good deal, guys.
Take care.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.